Are we looking at storm relative, or are we looking at base?
This is relative. You want base?
I just want to look at both just briefly so we can kind of see which products is going to give us the better choice in terms of what the rotation looks like. So let's look at base velocity here briefly as well, Rick, just so I can make sure that what we've got. So you'll notice that there was a strong wind south of Hardinsburg. Rick, hover over, is that a 60?
That is a 60-mile-per-hour wind.
Okay, so we know that the storm has produced 60-mile-per-hour winds. The area of rotation is about 2 miles off to the east of Hardinsburg right now. Now what we're going to do is look underneath here. We're going to look to see if there's any debris being lofted. And so we switched to a product we call correlation coefficient. Now if you're watching this afternoon, we saw basically a blue hole generated in the middle of this sea of pink. Particles, the same. Of course, it's the same if it's raining, right? I mean, that's, all the raindrops are the same size. This isn't rocket science. Right, what can change that size? Hail. If you've got a lot of hail in the storm, you can sometimes see what we look at speckles. If there's a tornado, though, think about what I'm saying now. There's going to be debris being lofted. That's right. Debris is going to be different size than raindrops. And so what will happen is you will get a blue hole right in the middle of the sea of pink. We don't have a blue hole in the sea of pink. So what this is telling us right now is the radar is not confirming a tornado on the ground. So this is a severe thunderstorm where we may be generating a tornado. Looking back now at the velocity here, let's see if we've got a new scan to assess. No new scan at this point right now, still off to the east of Hardinsburg by about 3 miles. And you can see that area of rotation. Rick, this kind of resembles, to me, what we were looking at a little bit earlier that was going through Du Bois County. The difference is that we're lower to the ground. So this area rotation where the other one was much higher, this area rotation, what are we looking at? Maybe about 1,800 feet above ground there?
Pretty much, exactly.
Okay, so this is closer to the ground. So that means that the rotation's trying to travel down through the atmosphere a little bit more. So that's probably why the Weather Service chose tornado warning on this. It just, when it's closer to the ground, you have to be a little bit more aware.
Absolutely. So obviously this is much closer to the radar, and the closer to the radar we are, the better we can sample the storm because that radar beam is tilted up. So if it's too far away, you're looking at the top of the storm. If it's a little closer, then you're looking inside the storm itself. And there are multiple areas where we are seeing some strong winds, not just to the east of Hardinsburg now, but outside of the tornado-warned box. I'm going to zoom in just north of Irvington. And each individual pixel, we refer to those as gates. And this is showing some winds of around 52 knots, which would be at least around 60 to 65 miles per hour. Because you multiply that by 1.15.
And that's outside of the tornado warned area. So, I mean, it's important to note here.
It is.
If we can get this. This is what's going to happen. You can get these quick areas of rotation that spin up, and we've got to watch every one of them.
Every single one. And this little area of some stronger winds, that's going to cross over State Highway 79. So if State Highway 79, north of Irvington, approaching the Guston area, be prepared for some powerful winds. Whether it's rotating or it's straight line, it doesn't matter if it's 60 to 70 miles per hour. That can definitely do some damage, and obviously it's not warned at this moment, so I just want to give you the heads up that if you live in Guston, some strong winds are moving your direction. So let's just hope that that can weaken a little bit. We still have that area of rotation inside of the tornado warning itself. I'm going to go over to storm relative velocity. And there's definitely some spin there. And we also see the area of spin around Irvington. So there are multiple areas we're watching here where we could see some brief spin-ups. And just like we signed off from the newscast at 11 o'clock, moving forward, obviously high winds and hail the main two threats, but we cannot take these off the table tonight.
And you can see, Rick, they just followed what you said. Obviously that area rotation that's in Meade County, Weather Service recognizes what Rick DeLuca just analyzed prior to the warning being issued, and that is, if you can justify the warning in Breck County, you can justify it in Meade because, quite frankly, you have the same quantity of rotation. The Weather Service has a challenge. You know, I'm going to be completely clear. They have to deal with these quick spin-up type scenarios. And the problem is that you can get these quick spin-ups. Sometimes we issue severe thunderstorm with tornado possible. Sometimes we go with tornado warning. Rick's looking at the products here to try to sense whether we're seeing any debris there. Rick, we've got two eyes on this. As I see it, I don't see anything that screams to me tornado on the ground right now.
Me neither. I'm going to just go back and make sure we have reflectivity, because if you don't have that spin or that damage inside reflectivity, then it's false. What the information is telling you does not exist. So we do have a little bowing segment around Irvington, that backward C showing up in reflectivity, and the apex of that bow is where you get the strongest winds. We also have that little appendage which has the second area of rotation, which is now far east of the Hardensburg area. A couple of roads, that's Old Highway 60, that's right along, let's try to get a couple more roads. Garfield Road. So again, if you are down in these locations where we have the tornado warnings present, then you need to be in your safe place. This should stay, at least the strongest rotation, just south of West Point. And that's one of the areas that has gotten hit over and over again in the past several years, where it's like, I feel like every single time we've tracked severe storms in that location. So I know you're probably heavily alerted. You're paying attention with the tornado watch until 4 o'clock in the morning. But here in Louisville, I would say within the next hour or so, we will see this ramp up and then come to an end. So if you are in Louisville and you're curious, what does this mean for me the rest of the night? I think we're going to see this main line of storms pass through within the hour. And then after that, the severe threat will start to come down.
And so you can see from the wide perspective here, by the way, Louisville, now you're under a severe thunderstorm warning.
Okay, so here we go.
So Louisville is now under a warning. Everybody out there, if you're watching from Louisville, we're now under a warning, and I want to get you, I'm going to try to take the tornado warnings out so you can get a sense of what's for Louisville. The hail size for Louisville is not expected to be large as it stands right now. What we have for hail size for Louisville on the current is 60-mile-per-hour winds with three-quarter hail. Three-quarter-inch hail is not huge. That's a positive there. I'm going to move, by the way, while we're doing all this, I'm going to move the 800 building camera to the west just so we can basically see, rather than looking at the downtown buildings, we'll be able to look at the storms as they're on approach here. So I'm going to be changing that in the process while we're doing all this stuff. By the way, if you ever want to see our cameras live when we're on the air, or when we're not on the air, you can view all of these. They're always on our website, always 24/7. So you can just go to WDRB.com, you click on weather, and you would come onto our weather cameras. So if we could, what I'd like to do with the severe storm heading towards Louisville, if we could kind of go with a two-box at this point, so we have the Louisville camera on one side and then we have the radar on the other side. So as it stands in Louisville right now, let me tell you what to expect Louisville. So I'm going to take off the lightning because there's so much of it, it just becomes somewhat challenging at times to see through it. So the strongest part of the storm right now is in New Albany. It extends southward. So this now is extending to, it's about to hit the west end of Louisville. So Portland, Chickasaw, heading southward to Rubbertown as it's about to cross the river. It then affects potentially PRP in around 2 minutes, around 3 minutes to 4 minutes in Valley Station, and then further south as we get to the Jefferson-Bullitt County line along Dixie Highway, it's probably got another 12 minutes to get to you. The strongest portion of the line goes from Dogwood, Indiana, hitting the Elizabeth area right now, and then hitting through around the Parkland area. Rick, you've got Storm View 3D. Just I want to verify here briefly, with the storms moving into Louisville, are you seeing anything on there in terms of rotation that would concern you? I'm going to turn it over to 3D. Just, briefly again, browsing through this, that area West Point, a little bit conspicuous close to the ground, but it does appear to me, based on where we're looking at from radar, that is a downburst wind.
Right, a bit more linear. And downburst winds, basically what you get is this rain-cooled air, this pocket up aloft, and then you get some dry air, and what it does is it bursts down to the surface, almost like taking a bucket of water. And imagine pouring that out. Well, the same applies to the wind, so that's why you would see damage come straight down and then fan out from a central point. So that's what he's referring to as downburst winds, and typically storms that collapse will have these. This is a different scenario. These storms are embedded within a line and a cluster of storms, and some of these are supercells, and these supercells, they rotate. And that's what we have ongoing inside these two tornado warnings. One just east of Irvington and another one approaching Custer, where we have some weak rotation. This is not a situation where I think we have damage being done, and I can verify that. First things first. So you see the greens and the reds in Guston, the other one just about, let's say, 5 miles to the west of Custer. I'm going to go over to correlation coefficient, and if I see any sort of blue dots where I had that area of rotation, I would be concerned. Not seeing that right now, so that is a good sign that we don't have rotation. But it looks like the Custer one's coming up a little bit, and the gusting one may have come down. Okay, so I would say less rotation on the northern extent, but more rotation showing up on the southern one around Custer. That couplet looks just a little bit better within this recent scan. So what I'm going to do is go over to normalized rotation. We don't have the green means go. Still not seeing any debris being lofted in the air. So while the rotation has come up, still no signs that we have a tornado which is doing damage or anything like that. But still, you should be in your safe place in Custer. I hope you are there right now. What you can do, if you're
looks
not,
a little bit more
it's definitely
concerning.
a little bit more. So, but nothing on correlation coefficient. What you can do, you should be in your safe place in Custer. So turn up the TV, just jack up the volume, go to your safe place so you can still hear our advice. And that way, when we say, hey, you're in the clear, you'll know when to come out. But I would say for the next 15, 20 minutes, just go to your safe place, let the storm pass by. It's not worth the risk.
And you can kind of see how these are definitely miniature supercells that are within the line. You can see how it's kind of got that hook appearance near the Ekron area, and there's a little bit of a hook appearance that's south of Irvington, and then there's another one of those notches that is in the southern part of this warning right now that's south of Corners. But that area of rotation, there's definitely multiple within there that are somewhat that's even coming up near Muldrow.
It is, sorry. This
is a problem now. We've got multiple areas that we're getting rotation within the line. So I'm going to take it over to StormView 3D. So we're going to spend a couple times. So there's an area of rotation to the east-northeast of Ekron. That's east-northeast of Ekron by about 6 miles. There's an area of rotation that's to the southeast of the Guston area. That one's moving off towards the east. So we have these multiple areas of rotation. Both of them look at least like they could produce a quick tornado. And then as we go further to the south, to me, so there's two things here. Rick, we're looking a little bit higher in the atmosphere near Custer, probably by about 300, 400 feet. And there's a new scan coming in. That's super helpful. So that rotation that you saw, if you noted on the last scan, there were pinks right there, right next to the green. The current scan shows they're not there anymore. So the rotation may have briefly weakened. This is what's going to happen, guys. We're going to see an uptick in rotation. It's going to go down, up and down, and we're going to assess on the spot what we're dealing with. Rick, more concerned about what's occurring now near Muldrow. That is coming up in intensity here. That's close to radar. That looks like that one's about 1,100 feet above the ground. Are we seeing any debris in that? That's a concern.
Not seeing any debris
Okay,
at this moment. But, I mean, like you said, these things evolve so quickly in a matter of minutes that it could quickly drop down a quick tornado. So that's why we're keeping an eye on these things vigilantly. Looking over at base velocity, at the bare minimum, you're looking at 70 knot winds. So that would be in the neighborhood of probably 75, 78 mile per hour winds.
Right.
So 70 mile per hour winds, that can do damage.
And that's the problem here is even if you don't get the tornado, we look through different products here, but what we're looking at is that there's an additive function here. So if a storm is producing 40-mile-an-hour winds and it's moving at 40 miles an hour, that means now that that wind has a relative speed of 80. So it means that when these storms are moving this quickly, you can get significant amounts of wind. Muldrow, I would be careful right now. You're right on the edge of where that tornado warning is and the severe thunderstorm warning. I think you need to be in your safe spot. If you're in Flaherty, let's take it easy right now. Get to your safe spot in your home and turn up the TV. Also, remember you can get the stream live on the WDRB Plus, on our WDRB News app. And you can find me on my Facebook page right now as we have a live running there as well. Those are the areas that are main interest. We also have an area of rotation that's near Custer. This one looks the most diffuse of them all, Rick.
Right.
Interestingly enough, the area of rotation right now that's the strongest is between Ekron and Muldrow, and that oddly enough is outside of the warning. It's drifting in now.
It is riding that line, so I know it can be very confusing because there's a gap between where we have the severe thunderstorm warning and where we have the tornado warning. And if you're in Muldrow right now, you need to be in your safe place. What does that mean? It needs downstairs. It means you need to be underneath something. You want to be in the center part of your home, and you really need to keep away from windows. I mean, it's so many people. I understand. You're curious. You want to get outside, see what's happening. This is not the scenario to do that, especially on the western edge of your home where these storms are coming in. You need to get away from the windows. We've already had so much damage today around the Milton and also the Madison area. This is not the same scenario. I'll repeat, it's not the same scenario. That was a supercell. That was all alone. It was a tail end Charlie. It had all the atmospheric juice and fuel to work with. This is a line of storms which present quick spin-ups, and right now in Louisville, you are under a severe thunderstorm warning. What are the threats? 60-mile-per-hour winds, and now we have those strong winds, and it is coming down in buckets in areas like Portland, down through Parkland, into the rubber area, Chickasaw, down through Riverside Gardens, Shively. You are now on the edge of the very heavy rain, but there are some lightning strikes out ahead of this main line. PRP, get ready. You're about to get drenched. Extremely heavy rainfall, gusty winds that is now impacting areas like Valley Station, and this will wipe its way across the county. Right now, it's confined to the western edge, but it's going to move off to the east pretty rapidly, around 40 to 50 miles per hour. That puts it in St. Matthews in about 10, Jeffersontown in 20, Eastwood in 25, Simpsonville 35, and Finchville. In about 45 minutes or so, if this line can hold together, it will slide across your area. But it is presenting quite the wind signature right now. Again, 60 mile per hour plus is possible in Louisville. So please be wary about the fact that we have strong and severe storms inside the metro with tornado-warned storms to the south of that. And Mark's going over to the wall to analyze what we have going on inside the tornado-warned storms. What you're looking at is velocity. And Mark, you can explain to the people what exactly they're looking at.
And what we're going to do is we're going to continue to monitor up and down this line, including Louisville, exactly what's happening. What we always promise you guys is real-time live analysis of what's occurring. I will say the Weather Service is doing the same thing that we are. But the advantage here that we have is if I see something in the immediacy of the scan, I can tell you instantly what's occurring here. So this is what we always offer. Muldrow, look, there's an area rotation now that's very close to you. Rick, 600 feet off the ground here? I mean, this looks awfully close to the ground.
No, only 200.
200. So Muldrow, the rotation's 200 feet above the ground. You've got to be in your tornado safe spot now. Let's not play around with this. When it's close to the radar, we know we're looking much, much closer to the ground. It is over Muldrow right now. So Muldrow in your safe spot, which is downstairs, underneath something, center part of the house, keep away from windows. We're not looking at anything that shows debris right now, and I don't want to play up unnecessarily. The problem is this may produce a tornado with little advance notice. And so the important thing to do in Muldrow is play it safe. There's the body of the storm. There's the hook. Very obvious that we have this hook right now near the Muldrow area. Let's go further down the line. We've got a break in the line as well. Here, not looking at any significant rotation. Flaherty, now we have that rotation just to your west, and then further south. So what you have to understand is the further you get away from the radar. People ask me this a lot. Mark, why don't you just aim the radar flat along the horizon? We wouldn't have to be looking higher up in the sky as you get farther away from the radar. Makes complete sense until you realize that there's trees near the ground. There are buildings near the ground in downtown Louisville. And what happens when you do that is the radar beam that basically gets absorbed by the trees, by the buildings, and you can't see anything. It blocks the radar beam. The only choice is to angle up. New tornado warning just issued here now. This is for that area rotation that we mentioned. So this is the one that's moved through the Custer area. So let's move down the line. Elizabethtown, you're under a tornado warning now. Is the storm on top of you? No. But you've got about 20 minutes to think about your plan. If you've got kids, if you've got animals, pets that you're going to need to get into the safe spot, it's maybe a good time to get ready, plan to get them awake. And you can see here is the hook, and there is where it rotates into the storm. One of the things you note here is there's multiple storms out ahead of this. The hope here, obviously, is that would weaken, but we're going to need to continue to monitor scan by scan. Rick, let's go back up the line. Excuse me, as we look at, let's look at velocity here. And I apologize, by the way, we've been talking a lot today. My voice is definitely taking a beating. So we've got the area rotation that is in the rural western part of Hardin County. We have an area of rotation right now that's going to go between Radcliffe and Rhineyville. That area is looking at about 800 feet above the ground. We've got the area near Muldrow that we're watching very, very closely. This one basically is right on top of Muldrow right now. And in terms of rocking back and forward, in terms of the intensity, they look pretty static to me. We're not seeing any major upward or downward trend. Rick, let's go northward into Louisville, see what we've got ongoing right now. I just want to inspect in terms of if we've got any rotation. The radar is showing a little bit of what we call a tornado vortex signature. Rick, with the purple bad data, can you take me up one level and see if we can get rid of the bad data? Sometimes it's a trick we have. Let's go up one more and see if we can get the bad data out. Okay, that looks like a bogus TVS, so that's good. But, you know, even in Louisville, I will tell you that there could be brief spin-ups. We're going to have to watch this thing. So the area of winds that are going to be the strongest right now, spreading across Louisville. Let's go over to reflectivity here so we can identify the areas of interest. So the strongest storm, let's go from northeast Louisville down through the county. So the strongest part of the line right now is going to be on the front edge here. So this is in Worthington, approaching Anchorage 2 minutes from now. Remember, this is moving to the east. In St. Matthews, immediately. 50 to 60 mile an hour winds potentially right now. Hurstbourne, this is going to be at your location 4 minutes from now, which will be right at midnight. J-Town, there is a storm in front, but the main line, which is back behind, would be in J-Town around 6 minutes from now. This is also now pushed through the airport. Audubon Park, it's over you. As we went outside, then we go into Fern Creek about 8 minutes from now. Further south, the line right now is about to approach I-65 outside of the Waterson Expressway. It's going to get past there and get into the Okolona area. Preston around 8 minutes from now. Heritage Creek around 4 to 5 minutes from now. And then Jefferson County Forest as we get into the southern part of Jefferson County. You're talking about 2 to 3 minutes from now. And then it will continue into the Hillview area as we look at outside of Jefferson County, probably about 9 minutes from now. This should give you an idea of when to expect the strong winds, and you can see it continues to press through Louisville. One of the positives I'm seeing is the intensity may be coming down just a little bit. Notice how intense it was to the west, and notice how it's weakening a little bit. And it's pouring in downtown Louisville right now. Rick, let's go further down the line and let's get back to the velocity, which has been our important thing to determine whether we're looking at rotation within the storm. Since we've got new radar data here, just want to look through Louisville here briefly, see if anything catches my attention. Nothing out there is overly concerning right now. It doesn't mean that you can't get quick spins. We're going to be watching. And Rick, do you know, does the warning have a tour possible on it, or does it just...
It does not.
Okay, good.
It's simply for 60s.
Good, I appreciate that. So let's go further down the line back into the tornado warning. Louisville, we're going to continue to monitor you very closely. Understand, if I'm looking at this, we've got Rick's eyes on something else. So we always have eyes on everything. Area of rotation near Muldrow doesn't look as good to me right now. Is it there? Yes, but this is weakening. That's a good sign there. But you know what, Rick? You can see these here. You can check the pixels here. I'm guessing we're looking at upper 50s to near 60 on these hot pixels here.
53.
Okay, 53 would mathematic, remember that's in knots, would take us to around 60-ish. And I'm also noting here, Rick, along the basically western part of Bullitt County, another one that's got some hotter pixels in there as well.
It's about 49, 48.
Okay, so these will be approaching Shepherdsville. They're between 50 and 60 in the next 12 minutes. Areas of rotation, looking west of Radcliffe, nothing jumps out at me. Looking at Vine Grove, Rick, agree, disagree. Looks like that rotation is becoming more diffuse.
Yeah, I'm going to rock back just to verify.
Okay.
But it seems like...
More intense there?
There's a slight little uptick near the Rineyville area, but the general trend is weakening.
Agreed. And let's go a little bit further south on that line then as well, as we have the one that's west of the Elizabethtown area. Rick, I'm positive on what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing all of this looks like it's coming down a little bit. And quite frankly, I think that you can really logic that out based on science. There's rain and thunderstorms ahead of this line. At some point, that's going to have an impact.
It only had like a very narrow window where it would thrive and survive, and that was between where we had the rain and where we didn't. So the rain-free zone is kind of running out of room. It's kind of running out of roadway, if you will, because the rain and the thunderstorm action out ahead of it has gone up, has been so intense that it's now taking energy from that secondary or the back line, which we've been watching all along. But that first one took shape very rapidly, shot up some thunderstorms. A couple went severe. Hail was the main threat, but obviously moving forward, it's going to be the tornado and the gusty winds definitely at the top of the list in Louisville. 50 to 60 mile per hour winds, and those strong winds extend south. I am not seeing as much rotation.
It's positive.
Which is a very positive thing to pass along inside either tornado warning, the one that includes Radcliffe and the one that includes E-Town. So that is good news to pass along. In fact, it looks really linear down to our south.
And what Rick's saying is linear means we're not seeing as much rotation potential.
Right, so you could still get some strong winds, don't get the wrong idea, but it wouldn't be rotating as hard as it once was. And
let's three box if we could, by the way. Let's throw some of our cameras in. E-Town's looking west right now, so that would be looking into if there was going to be a tornado on that storm. We're looking towards it. That said, what we're seeing on radar right now doesn't show that. It just simply doesn't. Can we also pop maybe downtown Louisville in here briefly to check out? We've heard the downpour occurring in downtown Louisville. I'm going to move this camera a little bit further towards the east. And Richard, you could stay with this shot. We can just kind of move as we're watching. So we'll kind of pan this across Louisville as we're looking at the storms. There's downtown Louisville. I'm a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds ahead of you, so you'll see the panning occurring here momentarily. And then ultimately what's going to happen is it'll stop there. Some lightning strikes over Louisville. You know, Louisville's rocking and rolling right now. We've got strong winds that are moving through the county right now, 50 to 60 mile an hour winds. I'm more concerned about the wind potential here approaching Shepherdsville, Rick. We're getting even more hot pixels there now, just south of Shepherdsville, maybe some a little bit higher. Those look like they're low 60s maybe.
they are absolutely low 60s.
So that means that we're now talking about pixels that are getting closer to 65 miles an hour. Rick, the problem with that is that's close to radar. So this is ground real. This is real. So if you're between Shepherdsville and Lebanon Junction, this is going to be just north of Belmont. So if you go one exit south of Shepherdsville, that's where you're going to run into the strongest winds right now. Be aware, some of those may be 60, 65, 70 mile an hour winds. These are strong, dangerous winds that are moving through this area.
Yeah, this is one of those scenarios where, I mean, this could easily do some damage to your siding. You know, if it's garbage night, the trash cans are going to get knocked over. I mean, that's almost a guarantee. Lawn furniture can end up in your neighbor's yard. This is the kind of scenario where you just want to play it safe. Again, if you're upstairs, if you have kids who are, you know, fast asleep, I would say it's really smart just to make sure they're away from windows. And now we're seeing the power outages start to come up, coinciding with some of those stronger winds. Jefferson County, 110 customers without power.
That's not crazy. I mean,
it's not too bad. I mean, we've seen far worse. Far worse. But, you know, this again could go up because the strongest winds haven't cleared Bullitt County. In fact, they are now moving into the highest populated areas like Shepherdsville. So we are going to see these winds traverse through. If it does damage, then you'll notice the perfect correlation of the strong winds passing through and power outages going up. So that's kind of something we're going to keep an eye on here if those power outages start to go up. I also want to just quickly kind of go down the line. Still, the two areas where we have tornado warnings, not overly concerned with tight couplets or anything. Still, they're rotating. But I'm not seeing anything that says we have a tornado ongoing, doing damage, or anything like that, just to help put you at ease. I know nights like this, they can take a lot out of you. It's now 12:03.
Isn't it the truth, though?
Yeah, I mean, you want to go to sleep.
I mean,
I'm sure.
it's unnerving.
It's Thursday. People have work tomorrow. It's not the weekend or anything.
I mean, the kid's going to be grumpy if you wake him up late at night. Rick's dog will probably somehow get sick and maybe eat some chocolate.
Yeah, that already happened last night.
Oh,
it's been a long week.
Rick had to go home last night and Hank had eaten a little bit of chocolate.
He did. A lot of chocolate.
And
then I got him to throw it up, and then I turned my back, and he was eating it. So that was a failed attempt. Welcome to my life.
But we understand you, your dog, everybody be cranky getting up. What we want to do, though, is we know that you're hearing the thunder and lightning. We know a lot of people are going to be turning on the TV wondering what's going on. We've got our friends here on my Facebook Live video. If you're on, if you want to watch and you're not by the TV, we get it. The world's changing. You can pull us up on your iPad. You can pull my Facebook Live feed up. You can pull up the WDRB Plus app. You can pull us up on WDRB, our regular news app. You can stream us off the website. Our goal at this point in the way the world's changing is to be available. We know at 12 o'clock at night, honestly, there's probably not a lot of people watching our television shows. Andy Griffith might be on. I don't think the Andy Griffith viewers are going to be calling complaining. Maybe they are, but I don't know how many people are left in the newsroom.
There'll definitely be
but
reruns.
We'll continue to watch. I mean, the reality here is, guys, we're here with you.
Yeah,
we have 2 tornado warnings ongoing right now. We're trying to have a little bit of fun because we know this is stressful, but let's get back to business. We've got rotation here continuing. Rick, south of Radcliffe right now, maybe a little bit of an area rotation. It just doesn't look great, and what's rotating in Hardin County right now is on a beeline to probably go just about maybe a half a mile south of kind of the main strip, in Dixie in Elizabethtown.
Right.
But all of this said, you know, I'm not going to downplay what we have on the tornado warning. I'm very concerned about what's moving to Shepherdsville.
Those
look like
strong
60,
winds.
62 knot.
Yeah, and then another severe thunderstorm warning. So it looks like the weather
They're going to
service
move
is-
over. They're going to move to
It looks
severe
like they're
thunderstorm.
starting to evolve.
And I'm going to move back over briefly just to Storm View HD, and you can kind of check those warnings for us. But, you know, obviously the curiosity here is, are we going with Tor possible on any of these? And that really, I'll show you what we've got on Louisville. Louisville is a severe only, a 3/4 inch hail, 60-mile-per-hour winds. Rick, are they going Tor possible?
They are not.
Okay, so this is important to note. The new severe thunderstorm warning that would outpace these tornado warnings, still a tornado warning in effect for Hardin County until 12:30. Tornado warning in effect for Hardin-Meade County until 12:15. It does appear the Weather Service is making that transition over. Wider perspective, let's just talk about what's occurring here. So the merger that was well advertised in the data is occurring. This is important to note. The merger means now that the front line has taken over and that back line is now dying off. Notice what's going on in Seymour. It's not the line it once was. This means that once this goes through Louisville, it's going to be show over for you. I want to be clear on that. Once this gets through Louisville, it's show over. So for Louisville, let's talk what we're dealing with. Our strongest winds right now would be around, let's say, Valhalla, on Shelbyville Road outside of the Gene Snyder. That would then go right through the J-Town area, Fern Creek. So we're talking the northern side of Fern Creek. We're basically talking just a pinch north of the Gene Snyder. So specifically, that would be, let's just say near the Kroger out there. Then we get onto around Preston Highway, and that's now overtaken Preston Highway. So that's going to be making its march to the east. We'll go through Beulah Church Road in the next 6 minutes. So that would mean then if you're in Glen Mary, outside of the Gene Snyder, along Bardstown Road, it's going to be in your location in about the next 6 minutes. Mount Washington, remember, you're on the northern part of what's in the Bullitt County area. So I'm more concerned about the winds near Shepherdsville that would likely then extend just south of the Shepherdsville area. Really concerned about these winds right now. I think some of those will be near 44, but I think that probably the strongest are going to be going down 480, which takes it towards Solitude. Then we've got our tornado warning cells as we look towards around Radcliffe. In terms of rotation in Radcliffe, I'm not overly concerned right now. And then watching the area of rotation, it looks like the Weather Service completely canceled the tornado warning that was west of E-Town. Let me verify that. But, Rick, that kind of goes well with what we've been seeing, and that is that the area of rotation is coming down on part of this. Interestingly enough, one of our systems still shows the E-Town warning and is not showing the Radcliffe warning. Rick, I'm going to give this to you for a second, but I'm going to see if we can clarify where these warnings are as we're at least in a process of seeing things changing here. So I'm looking at the new warnings here from the Weather Service just so I can get you. Weather Service canceled, Rick, just so we're clear, for Hardin County.
Okay.
And they expired the tornado warning for Hardin-Meade. So understand that the tornado warning canceled for Hardin means no longer effective until 12:30, gone. This means that the tornado warning for Hardin-Meade is until 12:15. I'll tell you what my plan here is. I know that a lot of people in Louisville are probably going to be wondering what's going on. And I think that what we're going to do is, you know, it's 12:10 at night. What's the hurt of staying in as we kind of walk these storms through? The tornado warning has been allowed to expire in the Radcliffe area. So that'll be coming off the map here in the next 5 minutes. It means the rotation's not there. It's just simply not there. But we'll walk the storms through Louisville because, quite frankly, it's in the middle of the night. There's going to be a lot of people that are curious. Rick, I'm going to move back over to the outage map briefly. Look at the difference.
Wow.
There we go. So Rick can tell you a small story about this, but over the last few years, I have kind of taken up this hobby of writing scripts. And so, I know, it's not funny, but it's funny. So we now are able to get power outages in our weather system live as this is occurring. So Louisville, when Rick talked to you last time, you had 120 power outages. Now we've got 3,700.
Right.
Rick, what this tells us is this is a real-time indicator that there's damage being done in Louisville by the storms. If this was a high-end scenario, we would probably have 10,000 plus. But for the 4,000 approximately people without power, it's significant
It's a big
to you.
deal. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thankfully, it's not getting terribly colder behind this front.
Right.
I mean, that would be a different scenario.
And my guess is
still,
they can get these back on.
you can get these back on. Obviously, crews are aware of the severe weather. They're probably already on standby, en route, ready to go. But I just want to give you a quick, just heads up and basically put you at ease for those of you who live to the northwest. If you're in areas like Charlestown, if you're in Borden, if you live...
And I'm going to come over to you so you
Okay.
can we've got your radar up, Rick.
If you live in like Whiskey Run, New Amsterdam, from Salem, basically anywhere from Scottsburg through Seymour, North Vernon, Madison, you are in the clear. Take a deep breath, exhale. The severe threat is over for you, and the Weather Service will start trimming the severe thunderstorm watch to take counties out. But obviously our south and our eastern counties have not seen the rain and storms just yet. You'll get them in a weaker fashion, but you still need to be on guard.
And by the way, we just got a report that some of these power outages are coming in out of Old Louisville. This is where we have some of our most mature and older trees.
Right.
So traditionally speaking, we tend to get trees that go down maybe a little bit easier out of Old Louisville than other areas. So be aware that we've got some damage that occurred on the storms going through Old Louisville. So if we kind of think down the line, and you can kind of see where that outage is, if we kind of go down the line, that means near the airport. It means, J-Town. This is an area where we know that the storms have at least done some damage. This is important to note. Again, you can see that the core power outages in Louisville is out of Old Louisville. So 6 minutes from now, Mount Washington. 18 minutes from now, it'll be in the Finchville area. Taylorsville, while you're not under a warning right now, let me just tell you that you still need to be aware. 29 minutes from now in the Hemp Ridge area, 40 minutes from now. Another 2.5 minutes in the tornado warning will come off the map. Remember, the National Weather Service has expired that warning, so that is gone out of the picture and will no longer be in play.
Mark, I have a quick addition to that, actually. I spoke with an arborist recently.
Okay.
And, he was just talking about some of the trees, in particular at Old Louisville, how we have the sidewalks, and he calls them tree graveyards, because the root systems, there's really not much for it to grab on, because you have the street, the asphalt on one side, and typically someone's yard, which, there's a lot of stone and whatnot, so the roots don't have as much to latch onto. So,
and they're huge.
And they're massive, like you said, hundreds and hundreds of year old, so those trees are more susceptible to some of the stronger winds and the tree damage, and that's why Old Louisville tends to get so many of the power outages.
Makes sense here. And just kind of briefly going back, let me take us over to the outage map here. This is the latest: 147 without power in Harrison County, 68 without power in Floyd. Not a big deal right now in Clark unless you're the 40 without power. 3,700 without power in Louisville. The main core of that is in Old Louisville right now, where we're getting most of those power outages. I want to say a big thank you to our executive producer, assistant news director, I should say, Andy, who's in the control room. And if you ever see a TV person, you'll probably notice that we have these in our ear. They're the voices that are always getting information on what's going on behind the scenes. The true story is I told Andy to go home. I said that we would take care of it. But I got to tell you, there's a degree of pride that a lot of WDRB takes. And after a day like today, where we saw tornado damages, Stefan Johnson's one of my best friends, and Stefan was like, I'm going up there, and got with his photographer, got up into the Milton, Madison area and was covering it, and Katrina was up there walking amongst this, and I will tell you, Rick and I have been doing this for quite some time together. Weather is something that you and I can cover as a team, what's going on right now. But we have a concept as a television station that weather is news. And what we mean by that is we have an army of reporters and drone pilots and photographers. We have our news director. We have executive producers. We have producers. We have an army that's at the disposal of the television station. Yeah. What we do is we cover the severe weather on air. But I got to just say, we appreciate our news team and what they do. We can't do this stuff on our own. And you know what? I think sometimes we get people saying, Mark or Rick, we appreciate. I just want you guys to know that we have people and our production crew that have been here for a really long time behind the scenes, and the hours that they work allow you and I to do what we do, and we appreciate it. To be able to cover the extent of what occurred today would never have been possible without a large group. And just, we just want to thank you. Louisville, by the way, you're out of the severe thunderstorm warning right now. So Louisville, the severe thunderstorm warning's been allowed to expire. Still 37 without power, 3,700 without power. The primary core, that's in Old Louisville. I don't know an estimate on the restoration of power, but my guess is that they're probably going to be able to work through some of this. Obviously, it would depend if it's a branch or, as Rick mentioned, one of those monster trees. We still have severe thunderstorm warnings in effect. No tornado warnings in effect right now.
They seem to be doing the blanket warnings, what we refer to as those larger warnings,
Agreed.
which cover a large area. And I can give you the exact threats that they are warning now for. 60-mile-per-hour winds. That is the main threat, and that extends along the entire line. So again, wind's the main threat here moving forward. Can't rule out some hail. We've gotten some pictures of some hail, but it is of the smaller variety.
And I'm going to go over to the weather wall real quickly, Rick, so we can kind of do a quick tour of what's going on in the area. Spend a little bit of time on this. It's been, Rick, I'm trying to think back. It's been some time since we've been on air this long. It's been a little bit here.
I can't even put my finger on exactly how long it's been.
It started at 2 o'clock when we got in here.
Not that we're complaining.
And hey, Jay, can you do me a favor? Can you turn the camera and can you show what our producers do? I'm just going to show you real quickly here. So, when we're on TV, like I mentioned, there's always people behind the scenes that are doing other things. And the creativity, you can see, they knew that we're coming over into this area, so they put the power outages on this television screen so I can see it out of the corner of the weather office. So you can see 3,700 without power out of Jefferson County. Breckenridge County has 518 without power. And this is the thing that Andy was telling us, is Meade County is coming up. Now, 1,400 people without power. So we're getting power outages. And Jay, it's late at night. Let's follow me back over to the wall here. So Jay's going to move the camera, and you can see this is where we stand. This is the magic of TV, by the way. The reason you see kind of what behind me is only weather maps is it's a green screen. And so the green screen, it's why you never see a weatherman wearing green. The green behind me is where they put the weather map. If a weatherman or a meteorologist has green on, the computer thinks that we're part of that screen back there.
And then we can't celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
We cannot. And it puts the
we always get pinched.
Yeah, and Rick, I can just show you, while we're on, it's late at night. I'll just show you. Here's a green towel. So you can kind of see what happens. If I was wearing green, it wouldn't know what was the wall. It would think that what I was wearing was green. So that's kind of how that works. What we've got out there right now, severe thunderstorm warning for Bullitt, Hardin, LaRue, and Nelson County. You'll notice that the hail is becoming less of a threat. I'm glad about that. That's one of those things that you can't not wake up when you hear it hitting the window. 60-mile-per-hour winds on the nose of this line. Let's take that off and let's just look down it. So that means Mount Washington. This means heading towards Taylorsville. It means Lebanon Junction right now. It means Bardstown. Look, Bardstown, Kentucky are now under a severe thunderstorm warning. Good news is we're not expecting a lot of hail, but 60-mile-per-hour winds remain possible. The strongest winds have now moved through Elizabethtown. We've got the line as well near Hodgenville, and Rick's going to track it to the east. Boston, Kentucky, 1 minute from now, 16 minutes from now in the Bloomfield area. Loretto, 16 minutes from now, and 31 minutes from now in the St. Mary area. The Weather Service is likely to start chopping counties. As they chop counties, what that means is they're going to release completely from the watch. That is the reality. The watch goes until 4 a.m. Rick and I will watch. Strongest winds right now are likely near the Lebanon Junction area. Remember, that southern Bullitt County area is probably where we're seeing the strongest winds. But we've got a positive sign here, Rick. We're seeing some weakening along the line. And Louisville, I'm glad to say this, it looks like we're moving into the all clear here in Louisville.
Yep. I think the worst is done here in Louisville. Now we're just kind of focusing in on our far southeastern communities. That is the only spot that we could still see some warnings occur. Again, power outages, nearly 4,000 in Jefferson County do not have power. Again, do not have power. So Obviously,
and Rick, I'm going to update that one in Jefferson real quickly. Andy mentioned that we might have up to 5,000 now without power here in Louisville. So let me check. There's the new update.
All right,
5,065 without power here in Louisville. So the power outages are going up here in Louisville. The good news about Louisville here is the worst of the storms have moved through. The bad news is we're still seeing power outages increasing. Now, as you know, Jefferson County heavily weighs our viewing area. There are a ton of people that live in Louisville. But Bullitt County has now come up a little bit here in the number of outages as well at 268. Shelby County not a lot at 4. Spencer is void at this point. Harrison has 148 without power and 40 out of Clark. Andy, are the majority of the outages still in Old Louisville out of Jefferson County, or are we seeing additional ones? Okay, so we're starting to get additional ones across the county. While there's no warning right now, here's the reality. You know, we're coming out of winter. Sometimes you can have some weaker trees that just let go. Right. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe we're talking 50-mile-an-hour winds. I think sometimes, you know, in our science, we're focused on whether it meets criteria. Does it hit the 58 that we require for severe thunderstorm warnings? The reality of the situation is 50-mile-an-hour winds, while technically not severe, can indeed produce damage. So,
I mean, if this happened, let's say, a month down the road, we'd have all these trees with leaves on them, which increases the surface area and has a tendency to take down even more trees. So thankfully, while the trees are budding and a lot of the flowers will be, and the pollen's going to be all over the place tomorrow. The leaves do not have the trees do not have leaves on them, so it's less surface area for those winds to pick up, which can sometimes reduce the number of trees that get knocked down. But obviously, we have some being snapped. Power's going down in parts of Louisville with 5,000 people now without power. And areas who still have to watch out for strong to severe, just to call them out, Springfield, Lebanon, Campbellsville, Greensburg, and areas like Columbia. Storms have not cleared your area just yet, so that is the zone we will watch very carefully over the next 2 hours or so before the storms clear. Once they do, you are good to go. And as we said before, Louisville, you can basically close your eyes and sleep.
Go to bed,
Sleep fast and sound, knowing that the severe threat for you is long gone.
And guys, since we have no more tornado warnings in our area here at this point, these are not severe with tornado possible. We're going to move back over to programming. Just so you know, the strongest winds right now would be along the Bullitt, Hardin, and Nelson County line. So yes, that includes Bardstown. Be aware, some 60-mile-per-hour winds are possible. Whether we're on TV or not, understand that Rick and I will continue to watch these warnings. There are no tornado warnings in effect right now. Just kind of a recap of what has occurred today. Just after 2, a tornado touched down and did damage near the Milton, Madison area, and then kind of crossed back and forth along the Ohio River. The Weather Service has surveyed this area. They have not surveyed the whole area. But in Milton, they have found at least EF2 damage. The surveys are going to take some days to get done. There's a lot of work.
EF2 is 111 to 135 mile per hour winds. So just to give you the scope of how strong those winds were.
And it's going to take some time to find out the exact width of this and how long it was on the ground for. But wanted you to know where we stand on that. We're continuing to watch the storms here, and we will through the overnight hours. Keep it right here on WDRB for continuing weather updates.